Hello and welcome to Hope for the Holidays. If you're tuning into this program, it's because you unfortunately and very sadly lost your loved one this year. And so you're tuning in to learn some things that could help you deal with the first time that you won't have your loved one throughout the holiday season. And we are very fortunate to have one of our special donor families here, VJ Farrell. And she is here to share some of the lessons she learned about how to navigate some of the very rough times as she was experiencing the holidays in the loss of her partner, Liz. And so I'm very, very glad that she's with us. And VJ, thank you so much for joining us for this program.
Thank you for having me, Ruben. Thank you, Kingsley. I'm honored to be here.
And of course, we have my colleague, Kingsley Moore, who is new to Donor Family Services. She was in the Communication Center and worked with donor families in a different capacity. But she has joined us and she loves families. So I'm really glad that she's also not only in the department, but also in this interview as well. So, Kingsley, thank you so much for being with us as well. So, VJ, so how about tell us a little bit about yourself and about your loved one, and then how long has it been since you lost her?
Thank you, Ruben. I'm DJ Farrow from the New York area. Um, my Liz, Elizabeth Clifford, and I were together. She was my beautiful wife. We were together for a beautiful 15 years. It will be 8 years this coming January. A little about Liz. She was all that. She was amazing. She was beautiful inside and out, witty, bright, funny as all get out, and I always called her my little overachiever because she certainly was all that. Everything she touched turned to gold, and she was such an overachiever that she touched 197 lives in her solid organ and tissue donation when she passed away.
It's amazing.
It always takes a lot of courage to make that decision to make your loved one give the gift of life. So, thank you for having the courage to do that, first of all.
Yes, it was her wish, Reuben. It was truly her wish, and I fully supported her wish. And unfortunately, I know there are situations in which families do not particularly support that wish of a loved one. But I was able to see it through, as difficult as it was, and I miss her tremendously.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about that very first holiday season without her. I We talked about this, and I remember that first holiday when you came to our candlelight service. But how about bring the audience up to speed on what was it like and what were you experiencing during that time?
Sure. My very first holiday season was challenging, to say the least. I was incredibly empty and in a very, very dark, dark place. I did have a wonderful, wonderful circle of friends around me. I met you, Ruben, at the very beginning. My very first interaction with Sharing Hope was at the Family Donor Service, the candlelight service. Unfortunately, as you recall, I could barely put one foot in front of another, and I cried the entire time. It still brings back very, very difficult memories, but that was part of the process. Recognizing your grief and walking through the journey is certainly part of the process.
You know, that was, I remember that very clearly, very vividly when you came in. It was very dark for you, and I salute your courage because there are some families that choose to, I guess, I would say, go the opposite way. Instead of coming to a service, they'll stay home or they'll not come to that moment. But you felt that really helped you during that time, even though it
I
was so
did.
dark.
And I'll be honest with everyone. Oftentimes, and I've learned throughout these years, the anticipation of those momentous occasions, whether they be holiday seasons, birthdays, anniversaries, the anticipation is almost more difficult than the actual day itself. And then suddenly you find yourself getting through that day, of course, with the wonderful support I received from you, Ruben, at Sharing Hope, and other donor families who reached out to me that very day. And I'll never forget many of them coming up to me after the service And it was as though I really couldn't hear what they were telling me, but now I know what it is to be one of those families, and I would certainly reach out to any new donor family at any time.
VJ, one of the things I thought would be great for you to maybe talk a little bit about as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, would you talk a little bit about that and how that's been such a supportive community to you? And I know that's an active community in donation in general. I would love to hear a little bit about that.
I have a tremendous circle of friends in the LGBT community. We stick together. And I have to say that Sharing Hope was incredibly welcoming to me as an LGBT donor family. Liz was my person. She was that person. And the community recognizes that finally.
Absolutely.
Our relationship was no different than a marriage of 15 years. We were together 15 years, and we're no different than anybody else. We love the same, and love is love.
No.
Absolutely.
And honoring her wish was
Definitely
definitively what I must do. And unfortunately, I know there are situations where some families don't particularly agree with things like that, especially in the LGBT community where it's not recognized. But I have to be honest. Everybody's been absolutely terrific. I have been welcomed with open arms, and I very, very much appreciate it, and so it should.
We're so grateful to have you. You're such a benefit to us and to all those who are listening, just to share your story. One of the reasons we wanted to do this is because holidays, especially the first ones, are so hard. I was wondering if you could share if you changed any holiday traditions. I know that's a question that comes up a lot with families, is that anticipation of what about that tradition or this tradition and how that changes.
Yes. I'll share a story with you. My very first holiday season, it was Christmas Eve, and we used to have 25 people at our beautiful home, and we would have a big seafood Italian fest. And unfortunately, that very first year, she's gone, and I thought to myself, what shall I do? And I insisted that the show must go on. And to all the donor families out there, it puts an awful lot of pressure on yourself. So I got involved with a friend of choosing a tree and decorating, and then you start taking out sentimental ornaments, and that becomes very challenging. And the lesson I learned through this whole thing is if I had to do that over again, I wouldn't have put that much pressure on myself to entertain this vast group of people, have a wonderful dinner, and it was truly wonderful, and everybody rallied together. But I put, I think, way too much pressure on myself. And I learned going forward, you know what, maybe somebody else should host this, and I'm going to show up, and I'll help in any way I can. So I urge donor families to do what feels right to you and not feel that to-do list that we all get so overwhelmed with.
I think that's important.
Yeah. A lot of families, well, as I've talked to families over the years, I found that some families will say, I'm going to change it, or they said, no, I'm going to leave it just the same. And of the families that I have talked to in the new year who kept it the same would call me back and say, you know what, that was the worst thing I ever did, because it makes the loss even more raw, you know?
I have to agree with that, Ruben. But again, everybody's different, and I don't want to speak for all donor families. Whatever feels right to you certainly is the right answer.
That's right. That's right. So if you, speaking about that, so if you, let's say, if you wish somebody would have shared with you then something that you really know now that really worked for you, what would that be if you want to share that with a family? Something that said, gosh, if I knew that then, I would have been able to handle that a little bit better. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Sure. Something that does come to mind is that grief is not linear. There's no finish line.
Yeah.
There's no timetable. This is in your own time and in your own space with the people you choose to have around in your inner circle. You never stop loving. It's okay to grieve. I grieve still, and it's been almost 8 years. And I've also learned putting pressure on yourself to get to a finish line is so counterproductive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's just awesome. Yeah. I just think, I think because families wonder, you know, as thinking about this, I think families wonder, okay, so I know this may be bad, at least the first one, maybe the second one. Does it change? How does it change? How does it
Mhm.
evolve, for you? How's that been for you?
I'll tell you, I had an interesting thought about it. Um, what occurs is you suddenly find gratitude, right? You find so much loss and then you find this gratitude. And I often think to myself on a Christmas season or a holiday season, those 197 lives that she touched. There are children, there are brothers, there are sisters, there are spouses, there are partners that have that person with them or an improved quality of life. So I try to focus my energy and my thought not so much on my very devastating loss, but what her gifts of life have done for 197 people.
Wow. Wow.
And that's what sharing hope is all about.
Right.
Finding that hope.
And there is hope out. It's so difficult to see at the beginning, folks.
It is.
I hear you, I understand, and I'm not going to say that it's all joyous and wonderful every holiday season, but I've learned to shift my focus toward gratitude. And gratitude for the fact that I had her for 15 years.
Yes.
And we had all that, and we were all that.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
I was wondering too, as far as donor family services at We Are Sharing Hope South Carolina, how have we helped you? I want to encourage those, out there to reach out. If you could share with them, if hopefully we have helped you and how that's been and encourage them to do so.
Tremendously. I cannot say enough about Sharing Hope South Carolina. Each and every one of you have been incredibly compassionate from the very start of this journey. I cannot say enough about the events that you've held, and I know during this COVID time it's a little more challenging, but I've had the opportunity to meet other donor families and hear their stories, and we all walk the same walk. Despite your loved one's cause of death, we've all had to make that decision, right? And the fact that the compassion that Reuben, Kingsley, and all of the folks I have met through Sharing Hope has been absolutely tremendous. And I'll go on a little further, if you don't mind, about the Transplant Games of America. I was honored to be a part of it for the very first time in Salt Lake City last year. And it was truly inspiring, a life-changing experience. All of these donor families being honored for the gifts that they gave, and to meet these thousands of recipients from all over the country was outstanding. It makes you believe that the loss of your loved one was not for naught. So and also Sharing Hope South Carolina has done something else for me. I decided in year 4 to have a fundraiser for Sharing Hope. And immediately all staff was engaged on how can they help me make it a successful fundraiser. I did things like I had shirts made up that said, what would Liz do? And said, be the gift of life, and wristbands, and sold those. And the support that I received from you to be there at that event and help me coordinate some of that was outstanding. I even had some recipients speak that actually, Shirley from Sharing Hope connected me with a liver recipient, and she and I have become fast friends, and it's absolutely wonderful. So she's had events, and I go to her events, and she's come to my events. She's grateful to me, and I'm grateful to her because I see what the gift of life has done to enrich her life.
Well, VJ, having you here and just sharing your insights is such another gift that you've given us and to the families out there. We're just so grateful for you joining us and sharing a little about your story and your beautiful wife. And we just are just eternally grateful.
I thank you, and I am grateful for you. I wave the flag for Donate Life. It's truly an amazing, amazing thing. And you will find comfort, donor family, knowing that your loved one is out there and improving and saving the lives of others. And if there's anything anybody needs, feel free to reach out to Ruben, to reach out to me. I'm here for y'all.
I just want to thank you so much for sharing a very, very personal story and sharing your narrative with us. I know that in itself, as Kingsley said, is a wonderful gift. And I think for me and Kingsley and for all of us who know you personally through your journey, it's been a pleasure knowing you and sharing that journey with you, and to see how, how really rough it was that first holiday, and then to see you now smiling. It was almost like looking at the first day is like, wow, will she ever smile again? Will
I
she ever be
know.
happy again? And just to see how you have just kind of mourned so healthily and just grieved so effectively, and you're a place where you're in this like healed, kind of like healing place,
Really.
still missing Liz.
Oh, tremendously. But, for all the donor families, grief is the price of love.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Oh, that's good. That is so good.
I have a few of these up my sleeve, Ruben. It's been a journey.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate you sharing this time and taking this time out of your busy schedule to share a gift with some of our new families who just need a little hope as they face their very first holiday. And if you are facing your first holiday, we just want to remind all of the donor families out there, please remember on December 13th is our Candlelight Remembrance Day. Unfortunately, we can't do it in the community all across the state like we usually do, but we are going to do it virtually. And so make sure you're part of that. Make sure you get your pictures in as well. Please, please, please get your pictures in so we can make it a part of that video collage. And then when you see your loved one, and of course, we're going to send you a candle photo so that when you see your loved one that comes up in that video collage, you'll be able to light that candle for your loved one and just leave it on, and then we'll tell you some special instructions what to do as we conclude the service. So please join us December 13th, which is it is actually International Candle Lighting Day, and it's supposed to light a candle for all the people who have had loss, especially those who have had children. So make sure you do that. And again, my friend VJ, you're awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you. Honored to be here, folks. Very honored.
And thanks, Kingsley.
Always.
Take care now. And bye-bye,
Bye now.
Joel.